Hello, I'm Sharon Marcil. I'm the current head of BCG Fed, the Chief Marketing Officer and head of the client team, and very excited to also be the incoming chair of North America. I am joined today in this conversation by my dear friend and colleague, Brooke Bollyky. Brooke also happens to be a worldwide expert on the future of work. So Brooke, it's great to be here with you today. A lot has been written about the future of work, but a lot of what has been written about the private sector and actually pretty narrowly focused. So if you think about it, an enormous amount of what's being said and written and discussed is around the topic of location. Whether you work from home, whether you work in the office, what are the implications in terms of footprint and real estate and costs, what are the implications in terms of collaboration, and actually much less is being written about ways of working and other things. And I think you and I have discussed this for the public sector. There's so much more opportunity in the future of work than just location.
So completely agree, Sharon. And it's great to be here talking with you today about this topic I know we both feel so passionate about. When we think about the public sector and future of work, I think it's really crucial for a few reasons. The first is that the public sector really does have its own nuances, and most of what we've been talking about has been private sector oriented, and it's unrealistic, in my view, to think that you can just lift and shift things over to the public sector. There are certain adaptations that you'll need to make, and it's time for us to be talking about specifically what those are and how to make it work within that environment. It's also important because it's a really large part of our workforce and our economy. If you think about the federal workforce alone, it's about 3 million people. And then you add on state, you add on local, you add on our education system on top of all of that. It's a vast number of people, and it's disproportionately skewed towards the knowledge economy. So knowledge workers are those workers, as you know, who are creating and consuming intellectual capital. And that part of our economy is much more impacted by these future of work trends than, say, the service economy or other pieces of it. So large workforce needs its own nuances, lots of knowledge workers, and those are the direct impacts. And then when we take it even a step further and think about the indirect impacts, think about what our public servants have been doing for the last year, okay? Running our vaccine response, keeping planes in the air, keeping our food safe, keeping our schools open. I could go on and on. It's really crucial for our day-to-day livelihoods and our quality of life to have an engaged, effective, productive public workforce. So this is something that's really important for us to be tackling head on. To the second point you were making around the when and the where of work, I completely agree. That's been the focus so far of this discourse, and it makes sense why, because it's the acute issue that everyone's dealing with. Do I get up on Monday and go into the office, or do I stay working from my living room couch? It's something that decisions we need to make right now. Can I still work my standard hours that I want to work, or do I need to go back to 9 to 5, right? The challenge is I don't think you can fully solve for those in isolation. There's a bigger picture. There's a holistic picture of not just where and when, but also what and how. So what is the work that we're doing, and how is that changing, and how are we going about collaborating and accomplishing that work? And by solving for all of these together, you'll be able to look at the what and the where much more effectively.
I couldn't agree more, Brooke. I think that's spot on. Even when we've discussed this, what is the when and the where really about? It is about location. It is about where you physically are, but there's also a bigger part of that. So it really is about flexibility. And will I have the flexibility that I want to get my job done? Will I have agency and actually control over the work that I do? And actually also trust. Does my employer trust me to get the work done in the place that is best suited to do that? So I think there are big topics even underneath this notion of where. You mentioned other things, so let's talk a little bit about the how. So you and I have been working differently in our casework and with our clients. We've been using more collaboration tools, more video conferences, different agile ways of working, which includes huddles, which includes inventorying of things we're getting done. And so we're continuing to evolve kind of the how in the ways that we work. And I think all of those things are super important. I also think some of what we've been doing in terms of really thinking about working groups and pushing decision making down to the lowest possible level is key, because I think that is about trust, and that is also about agency, and that is also about getting people really excited that they are making decisions to drive their own work and to drive their own outcomes. And so I think the how we're getting work done, that conversation needs to continue. And then I think the other part, Brooke, that you and I have talked about also is the journey. And if you think about my job or your job or our colleagues' job, our jobs are going to change. They're going to change tomorrow, they're going to change next week, and they're going to change next year. And so our ability to do our jobs in our swim lanes today are good, but more importantly is our ability to actually get better and actually have the flexibility and the self-determination to change as we move forward. So much has been said about the growth mindset. I know you and I believe in that, entirely. And having the courage and having the excitement to take on new challenges, even if you may fail a little bit in those new challenges, I think is such a critical part of the work we do, and such a critical part of the future of work, because I think it will prepare us all to be more resilient, and I think we'll enjoy our work more as well.
And it makes me think of a time, we've been working together now for about 10 years, I think. And I worked for you on my very first engagement. And I remember distinctly as a part of that, when I had gotten some not complimentary feedback, some very direct feedback, which was right, it was correct, it was spot on, but it didn't make me feel very good. And I remember you pulling me aside and saying, Brooke, feedback is information. Absorb it and move on. And I mean, I literally, I can see the image still. I can see what you were wearing, because it was so meaningful to me, because what it told me was, it's okay to try things and make mistakes. It's okay to stretch yourself. I'm not going to be in trouble because I've made a mistake. And that really helped me to have a growth mindset and to keep trying and being more ambitious and experiment with different things. And I think you as a manager helped to create that environment where that was possible. And I think that when we think about that, we also need to, immediately bridge to this idea of psychological safety, because that type of a conversation can't happen without an environment where someone feels safe bringing things up, right? And you actually see not just this open collaboration, but you also see something like a 70% increase in creativity and just the general quality of what people do by having the psychological safety as well.
So Brooke, that really resonates with me. As you know, a lot has been written about the Great Resignation. And if you think about where that's coming from, so many employees have taken jobs over the last couple of years where they've never had the opportunity to come into the office. They've never met their boss. They've never met their colleagues. And so they're distant from the culture, and in fact, in some cases, distant from the work and where that delivers in terms of outcome. And I think the Great Resignation actually produces an opportunity for us, both at BCG and also in the public sector. And I call it the Great Recalibration. I mean, it's an opportunity for us, Brooke, to actually really think about re-recruiting our workforce every day by giving them meaningful work, by connecting their work to outcomes, connecting their work to mission. And I think at BCG, whether we're doing climate or whether we're doing AI, we have a tremendous opportunity to do that. But in the public sector, even more so, because the work that gets done is so clearly attached to the mission. And I think that can be a great connector in terms of the future of work.
And another attribute to think about in terms of engagement is learning and development. So learning and development is highly correlated with employees feeling engaged, and even more so among knowledge economy employees, who tend to be even more motivated by intellectual engagement. I'm going to put a bold idea out there. Okay? What if our federal government, instead of just being a consumer of talent and skills, is a manufacturer of talent and skills? And I'm thinking in particular in some of those skill set areas that we know are a broader gap for our economy, around data and digital and analytics. So think about this. If you would like to become a pilot, the most elite thing you can do is join the Air Force or the Navy, right? That's where you'll get the most elite training. What if you wanted to be a programmer and your first choice was to go join a rotational program in the federal government, where you got to work on exciting and meaningful projects across a variety of agencies, maybe shift in and out of the public and the private sector, and really lift the capacity of the government itself to provide services, but also contribute to the overall skill set of our broader economy?
I think that's a fabulous idea, Brooke. I love your bold idea. I think it's amazing. And look, it's been just a pleasure talking to you about this topic today. I think you have so many great ideas, and I want to thank you so much for your time. And I also want to thank The Atlantic, because without The Atlantic, we wouldn't have had this wonderful opportunity. So big shout out to you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Sharon. It's been a real pleasure. And thank you to everyone for listening. We'd love to continue the conversation with you. Please visit us at bcg.com.